welcome to the fourth and final game of the evening. The last game of the year, come to think of it, in SuperTotalCarnage. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to read that in like one garbled blurb, since it's all
SuperTotalCarnage.
Yeah. But anyway, slay never-ending legions of monsters while running in circles. SuperTotalCarnage is a gory and dark horror casual game with roguelike elements. Choose from a variety of weapons and perks and make every playthrough a different experience. Unlock many characters, each one with different abilities. Worth noting, this game is in early access, which is why it's in its impressions. Especially important since it recently released in early access back in October 27th of 2022. So, nearing about second month of early access. I feel like bringing this up is important because this thing is targeting about a year and a half of early access development, in which a whole bunch of new content is being added. It's also why we do impressions and not reviews of early access titles, because, yeah, these things change shape over time. You know, granted, games can do that post-release, but, you know, it's even more pronounced in early access. Because,
yeah, now they're not even pretending that this is what they want people to actually buy. I mean, they kind of are, but since they're selling it, but...
Okay, so... there's no use beating around the bush on this, I think. This game is Vampire Survivors.
Only less colorful, yes.
Less colorful and less intense. Like, that's why I'm bringing up the 2-month early access period. Because, like, if you play Vampire Survivors, there's going to be a lot more going on the screen. Okay, you know, I will grant that this does also have an endless mode currently, but I'm talking about, like, regular gameplay sessions. Vampire Survivors has a lot more going on. This is actually dialed down quite a bit from what Vampire Survivors has in it.
So it's like the beer to Vampire Survivors' mixed drink, where sure, it looks darker and grittier, but actually the other one has a much higher alcohol content.
It's an interesting analogy, but accurate, I'd say. And that I think is the other major problem with SuperTotalCarnage here. It is mostly Vampire Survivor, like, just down to the details. You know, things like the UI. Like, look at this. This is fucking Vampire Survivors UI. Like, it looks like the actual Vampire Survivors UI.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that
which on one hand, don't try to fix what isn't broken, but on the other hand, don't try to sell something as a new product.
Yeah.
When it isn't.
No, this is actually a bit of a problem, in the sense that, you know, you're not Vampire Survivors. You're SuperTotalCarnage. What does that mean? Like, right now it means being Vampire Survivors with a very drained color palette. And, you know, ostensibly different weaponry. You know, it's like the differences are going to be in the finer details, I think. And that's probably not a good place for SuperTotalCarnage to be in right now, since Vampire Survivors is the indie sensation of the year.
I mean, there's something to be said for if you don't have a new idea, copy well.
Yeah,
Or
like,
what's the actual saying? Good artists innovate, great artists steal.
I'm not. I guess that might be what you're looking for, but I'm thinking.
Oh
more,
no, I'm not saying these are great artists. I'm just saying that's a perspective.
Hmm. You know, like in terms of actual mechanics, it all works fine. Like if you, but that's where I keep coming back to. No matter how I look at this, it's like if you've played Vampire Survivors, you played this game for the most part. Like here is, I think, the biggest contribution that Super Total Carnage is adding to the formula right now. That is, bosses. But right now, there is only 3 bosses to its name. And the total playtime is 15 minutes. Like, it's even got the treasure thing down. Its UI gussied up a bit, but once again, all this isn't bad. It's just, it doesn't have its own voice. Really. Like, okay, you've changed it up enough to make it legally distinct, but everything here is just too close to the vest to Vampire Survivors to make me say, yeah, you should play this other game. When, Vampire Survivors offers so much more just by virtue of being on market longer. And yeah, in terms of content, there's already a fair few characters that play differently. But once again, it's all Vampire Survivors. I cannot, I hope I am conveying how much this is close to Vampire Survivors. Because it's pretty much a skin pack. Or a mission pack sequel or something like that. Even though it's a game by a totally different company. And in cases like this, you don't really want to focus on what's similar. You want to focus on what's the contrast. And unfortunately, the contrast here isn't much. And, how much of that will change, I couldn't say. But, here 2 months out, yeah, I guess if you're jonesing for Vampire Survivors but in a different skin, go for this. But otherwise, it's like, just stick with Vampire Survivors. And that's about all I got. Anyway, in terms of pricing, much like Vampire Survivors, this is going for dirt cheap. It's currently clocking in at $2.99, and I will note in the early access notes that this price will increase as time goes by, and that did happen to Vampire Survivors. I think that's I think this was like the price we looked at when it was, or Vampire Survivors might have been $1 less in early access. Like, its price rose to $5 when it got released. So this might end up being like $6 when it reaches 1.0. Don't know. I'm not even sure if the developers have locked in such details. But yeah, that's about it. That's about all I got on Super Total Carnage. Any questions?
Is the carnage total?
I'd say it's comparable. Like, it's definitely comparable to the carnage you find in Vampire Survivors as well.
So it's not particularly super.
Not compared to Vampire Survivors. Once again, Vampire Survivors has a lot more going on. It's a lot more intense. Just by the virtue of that game being out for a couple years.
Well,
and
this one seems to be much more easier. I haven't died yet.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I don't know what to chalk that up to. By the fact that, it's only 2 months old in terms of its release.
Like, is that intentional, or...
Yeah, or have they not...
just not added the stuff that's going to make it hard yet?
Yeah, this is why it's an impressions video, not a review. Because it's, quite frankly, not entirely fair to stack this up against Vampire Survivors. But it's inevitable just by how close to the best it is to Vampire Survivors. So, yeah, I would recommend keeping an eye on this game, or maybe purchasing it now before the price goes up. But it's definitely a distant second choice on the Vampire Survivor scale. So, yeah. I think that'll about do it for Super Total Carnage, and indeed the review sessions for the year. This was the last one until 2023. So that means, we are reaching our last week of broadcasting. And coming up on the week ahead, so on December 14th, Wednesday, we'll be having Jared Hoag and Dominic of Something Nerdy Studios. You might recall this was supposed to be our Friday show, but then, like a good few hours before the broadcast, Jared contacts me and like, oh, right, I didn't realize that the date and time of this. Can we do this, sometime else? And we worked it out to Wednesday because other guests had to shift to other time slots, let's say. And so we're going to be talking about, trying to remember, hang on, let me look the actual title. Yeah, Former Dawn. The upcoming action RPG for the NES. So we'll be they're also cutting a trailer for us, or cutting footage out of what they put out. So hopefully I'll get that by Wednesday. We are supposed to have a show on Friday, but that's currently up in the air because the personage, they haven't even selected the personage who's going to appear. But we are supposed to have a representative of Fulcrum Publishing, which is the former 1C Publishing. They are the publishers of games like King's Bounty and Men at War, Graven, Forgive Me, Father, whole bunch of stuff. So hopefully they'll get in touch with me in the next few days. And we do have a new installment of Fragments, Moonhawk Studios Presents planned on Wednesday as well. So look for that. And until Wednesday, I shall wish you good gaming.